All right, so today we're going to get into rules 5 and 6. 5 and 6 are a couple of my favorite new rules because they really talk about how to play golf. And it sounds kind of like a simple thing to say, but Rule 5 is playing a round of golf and Rule 6 is playing a hole. And that's a great way to describe what we're doing and how to use these rules. And so the way that these new rules are written, this is fantastic. Really excited about this layout here. A lot of rules, as you've seen with our first two sessions, have been combined into a new rule, and that's what we have going on here as well. Here's how Rule 5 is laid out. So everybody knows also, before we go forward a little bit farther, the practicing with the S is going to be up there in the new rules. That is International English, and it's going to be used quite a bit. So this is a code of rules between the RNA and the USGA, not just us Americans. So you'll see that every now and then, and I'm still not 100% sure how they differ, but I think with an S as a verb and with a C as a noun. And so the purpose of Rule 5 is just basically covers how to play around, when we can practice, and when we can do it, where we can do it. It also talks about the timing, so it takes a little bit of the player's responsibility from Rule 6 that is currently in place and puts it into Rule 5 and talks about starting the round on time. Not early, not late, but on time. Play continuously in prompt pace, and here's where we get that 40 seconds that's in the rule for the first time. That talks about every player should, not must, should be able to play every stroke within 40 seconds. And so when we actually have a pace of play issue, we have something in the rules that we can back into and say, all right, here's the issue that we have. And if somebody plays in 41 seconds, we're probably not going to penalize them. But 40 seconds is a good number to be able to show a player that we have and that they need to play a stroke in that time. And it even says possibly quicker than that. Notable changes within this rule: players may practice on the course after they have completed play for that day, even between consecutive rounds of stroke play. So that is a little bit of a change. So like if we had a Monday, Tuesday event, and you played Monday, you're done with your round, you couldn't go back on the course Monday afternoon and play. You were automatically disqualified. We had a famous situation happen with our Watson Challenge a number of years ago at Indian Hills, where a member went out and played after he played his round. He just had some buddies and went out and played. This is now allowed. This is now allowed within the rules. Again, a common sense rule. Do you think we should allow a member of a club to go play with their son and daughter afterwards? Sure. Makes sense. So that's a good change there. And penalty for a breach of the first unreasonable delay is 1 stroke now. So now if we do have unreasonable delay, we can just give them 1 stroke right away, okay, within the new rules. An individual may stop play only because of lightning. Okay, this kind of seems a little bit weird, but when we get into it, you'll understand it. There's a difference between stopping play and just kind of taking a break. Okay, stopping play means you get off the course, you're done, I'm not playing anymore for a while. But like if you get sick or something like that, you have to like drop to a knee or lay down or something like that, you're not stopping play. We have a delay. So that's what this is. So a player is only allowed to stop play on their own, walk off the course because of lightning. Again, stopping due to sudden notice or to get a ruling is unreasonable delay, not stopping play. So it's just a different place to find the rule. They've separated it out a little bit to make it a little bit clear. It might not be clear yet, but it will be, I promise. All right. A round is 18 or fewer holes played in the order set by the committee. It used to be a stipulated round. The word stipulated is no longer in the rules. It just talks about a round. A round ends in a tie, and play will go on until there is a winner. We talked a little bit about this last week. Match play, we extend that round hole by hole. Same round. Stroke play, it's a new round. Okay? And why does that make a difference? What is the difference for stroke play? What's the big deal there? You can change clubs. Okay? And in between the playoff and the regular rounds, you're not playing golf at all. Okay? In match play, you're still actually in your round. After that 18th hole, you're still inside your round. So there's some different rule situations you got to be aware of between the difference of match play and stroke play. A player is playing his round when it starts until when it ends. How about that? Brilliant statement there. But there are some exceptions, of course, in the rules that we talk about when that round is suspended. It is now called a stoppage in play, or when play is stopped. It is no longer called suspension. And when a rule refers to actions taken during a round, that does not include during that stoppage of play. There are different rules that are covering the stoppage of play. So like if you're looking for a ruling or looking for an answer to something, we just got to make sure we know where to go and find it. And that's kind of lays it out right here in 5.1. All right, let's talk about practice in 5.2. Practice on the course means playing a ball or testing the surface, rolling a ball or anything like that. And these limitations for practice on the course before or between the round, and that's what we're talking about right now. We're not talking about during the round. We're talking about before or between, only apply to the player, not the caddy. Okay, this is not a change. We had a decision before where the caddy went out and played golf before the round. Not a problem there. Okay? In match play, a player may practice on the course before a round or between the rounds of the competition. Same as it is right now, no change. Okay? In stroke play, we got a little bit of a change coming up here. But a player may not practice on the course before a round, except that the player may practice putting or chipping near the first teeing area, or any practice area. Again, no change. And a player may practice on the course after completing the play of his or her final round for that day. And that is the little change that's up there now that we just kind of hit earlier on right there. So once your final round is done for the day, stroke play, you can go back out onto the course. And here's a change in the penalty. The penalty now is the general penalty if you're caught practicing out on the course. One time, but if we tell you, hey, stop practicing, and then you go do it again, now we're going to disqualify you. Okay? Originally, currently I should say, it is a disqualification to practice, but now it is the general penalty followed by disqualification for the second offense. All right, when to start a round? A player's round starts when he makes a stroke to start his first hole. Pretty simple, straightforward there. And the player must start at and not before his or her starting time. Okay? No change here with the new rule. But this means the player must be ready to play at the starting time and the starting point set by the committee. What does ready to play mean? Be at the tee, have a club, have a ball, be ready to go. I mean, sitting in your cart, you know, by the practice green when it's your time to go, probably not ready to play. Okay, you got to be ready to go. So just being there at the first tee isn't going to satisfy this condition either. Make sure you have a ball and a club ready to go. Unless you get to throw one, which I haven't played any rounds of golf that you get to do that. This is official. All right, the starting time set by the committee is an exact time. So 9 a.m. means 9 o'clock, 9 hours, no minutes, no seconds. It doesn't mean 9 hours, no minutes, 52 seconds. So we don't wait until it turns to 9:01. So once we hit 9 o'clock, that's the starting time. And then the rules will be applied accordingly. The starting time is delayed for any reason, such as weather, slow play. There's a group out there in the fairway. We're not going to penalize the group that can't play golf yet. There's no reason to give a player a penalty because there's a group out in the fairway. Pretty common sense there. Okay, penalty for breach of this rule is disqualification. Okay, so if you miss your starting time, you're DQ'd. There are 3 exceptions to this. Most of us know these exceptions. The 5-minute rule. Player arrives at the starting point ready to play no more than 5 minutes late. The player gets the general penalty. Lost a hole in match play, 2 strokes of stroke play. So you show up at 9:03, ready to go. You still get to play golf, but you're going to start with your 3rd stroke from the first tee there. The other exception with the 5 minutes is if you go early. Why would this be a problem? Why do we have a penalty for teeing off early? Yeah. The subsequent groups behind you, there's a timing mechanism that's there. So every group has to have a starting time. The group behind it is going to be in position in relation to that group in front of them, so we have to know what time they go. So we can't have them going early and then changing starting times throughout the rest of the day. So there is a penalty if you go earlier than your starting time. So we want to keep everybody on that. 9 o'clock means 9 o'clock, not 8:57, not 9:03. And if the starter tells you to go early? If the starter tells you to go early, then you have the committee giving you the allowance to play, and the player would not be penalized there. I might talk to the starter and say, why are you doing that? Which is usually me, but of course I've never done it wrong. All right, and the third exception to this rule is if the committee says, all right, there's no problem. Okay, and that's generally what's going to happen throughout the rules of golf is the committee has a lot of power to kind of oversee some things, but they can't waive rules. But they can make decisions and but decide on what the facts are of a situation. If you have a good reason to miss your starting time and the committee says you're okay, there's going to be no penalty. You know, what's a good reason to miss your starting time? CPR. Somebody finds Todd laying in the locker room and they give me CPR, thank you. I'm not going to penalize you. But yeah, there has to be a good reason. Is traffic a good reason? No. No, that's a decision that's currently in play and moves forward. Okay? Just because you picked a bad route that day, sorry, that's not a real good reason. All right, so we've got a round going. When does it end? Match play when the result of the match has been decided, how the committee decides it's going to be, whether it's posted on a board or when it's turned into the pro shop or whatever that situation is, whatever the committee has decided, As soon as that result is final, the round ends for that match. In stroke play, when the player holds out on that final hole, which includes any corrections, so if the player holds out on that final hole, but still has a ruling that has to be resolved, his round isn't over until that ruling is resolved. That's what that means right there. All right, playing in groups. This is a rule that gets tested a little bit a lot of times in USGA qualifiers when people make the turn and say, all right, I'm out, I'm leaving. So we got to pair up some groups and so on and so forth. The players are not allowed by themselves to pair up these groups. The committee has to allow this to happen. And it says here in the rule, during the round, the player and the opponent must play each hole in the same group. Pretty straightforward. Stroke play, we must remain in the same group set by the committee unless the committee approves a change before or after it happens. And so why did I highlight that? What does before or after mean? I kind of alluded to this last week. It means it's not an automatic disqualification if the groups pair up. Okay? It is a penalty unless the committee says it's not. And it says it right here. So like if two twosomes are playing behind the entire field of a bunch of threesomes and foursomes and they say we're waiting on every stroke, we're going to pair up, they are liable to penalty unless the committee says no. It says you're fine. So that's what this rule means right here. It says before or after, right there. Yeah, it's up to the committee to decide if it's a penalty.
Sometimes the committee will have that done.
The committee will generally do that, and I would really hope that the committee would, and the players would not pair up on their own, because it is a breach of a rule, and actually currently it is an automatic disqualification. And then the committee can, they're supposed to DQ them right away. But now this rule just says, hey, the committee can say it's okay at this point. So again, the new rules are a lot friendlier to the player. They really are. All right, let's talk about practice during the round or while play is stopped. Okay? While playing a hole, a player must not make a practice stroke at any ball, highlighted with some plastic balls up there. Just because it's a non-conforming ball doesn't mean it is not a golf ball, and doesn't mean that you're off the hook for practicing with one. Okay? What are not practice strokes in the rules of golf? A practice swing made with no intent. So you're just kind of sitting there next to your ball, taking a practice swing in the rough, and your ball pops out that you hit by accident. You were making a practice swing and hit a golf ball with no intent. That is not a practice stroke. So there will be no penalty in that situation.
I'm jumping ahead here, I know. But
Okay.
Is this a ball at rest that has been moved?
Is this a ball at rest that has been moved?
You're making a practice swing and you inadvertently hit your ball.
Well, that's a different rule.
Yes.
If you make a practice swing and inadvertently hit your own ball, that's not a practice stroke, but we do have moving your own ball in play. Even though it's an accident, you're going to be penalized. And we'll get to that in a different rule, because that's not a practice stroke. Yep. Jumping ahead a little bit, but I like how you think. All right. That's the first woman to ever say that they like how I think. Thank you very much. And we've got it on tape. How about that? All right, so what else is not a practice stroke? It's hitting a ball back to a practice area or to another player when done solely as a courtesy. How many people have hit the range ball back onto the range when they're out there? It happens all the time, right? Okay. Solely as a courtesy, what does that mean? How can we look at this and say we have a violation in a certain situation? If a player sees a range ball and does this as they're walking, looks like a courtesy, right? Player sees a range ball and goes, all right. Is that solely as a courtesy? No. We've got something going on there. That's where this rule would take effect in that situation. Strokes made by a player in playing out a hole, the result has been decided. Okay, we've got this situation where somebody's hit 3 balls out of bounds. It says, all right, the hole's yours, we're moving on, but you can still play that hole. And those aren't practice strokes. The hole has been decided, but you can still keep on playing throughout that hole. A lot of other different examples within that rule as well. Okay, restriction on practice strokes between 2 holes. All right, so between 2 different holes, a player must not make a practice stroke. There are some exceptions that we are going to talk about first here. The player may practice putting or chipping near. This isn't a change of any new of the rules, but this is exactly how it's been. The putting green of the hole just completed in any practice green. Like I said, currently in the play. The teeing area of the next hole, still the same. But the practice strokes must not be made from a bunker and must not unreasonably delay play. Why is bunker highlighted there? It's a specific area of the course, one of the specific areas of the course, but it's also a little different than it is currently. What is the rule currently? You can't make a practice stroke from a hazard. Okay? Now we split bunkers and penalty areas away. So what does this tell you? Can we make a practice stroke in a penalty area? Yes. Yes, we can. But we don't unreasonably delay play. So that's what it says right there in the rule. We've got a little bit of a change. Not a big one, but it's there. All right, practice during round or while play is stopped. So we're going to talk about when play is suspended or stopped in this situation. A player must not make a practice stroke except as allowed in 5.5b, which is all those examples we talked about with the putting near the green and not in a bunker. You can practice anywhere outside the course or anywhere the course the committee allows. Pretty straightforward there. Okay? If a match is stopped by agreement, okay, and we're going to get into that very specific, what a match stopped by agreement means. So keep your mind wrapped around that one for a minute. And the play will not be resumed that day. The players may practice back out on the course without restriction. Now that's the same rule as practicing before a round. Okay? In match play, you can practice before the round on the golf course. So while play is stopped and we know we're not getting back out there, you can go back out there. This is what this rule says. But does it say stroke play? No. It says if a match is. So if you have stroke play and play is resumed, you can't get back out there. Okay? If breach happens between two holes, we're going to apply the penalty to the next hole. Because obviously practice should be helping you moving forward. So that's where this ruling would happen. In between holes, we're going to apply it on the hole going forward. All right, unreasonable delay, a very fun subject with rules officials. A player must not unreasonably delay play, either while playing a hole or between two holes. And a player will be allowed a short delay for some certain reasons, and these are examples, but not a complete list. When the player seeks help from the referee or committee, a ruling. When the player becomes injured or ill, like we talked about, we can delay play for a minute. When there's another good reason. Again, it's not an exhaustive list, but as long as the committee thinks there's a good reason, there might not be a penalty for unreasonably delaying play. But if we do have penalty situations, we now have a one-stroke penalty for delaying play right away. First offense, one stroke. Second offense, you get the general penalty, loss of whole match play, 2 strokes and stroke play. And if you're just not getting the message, we're going to give you the message. You're not going to play any more golf for that day if you do it 3 times. So, and again, unreasonably delaying play between 2 holes applies to the next hole. All right, here's where we start talking about the prompt pace of play, where we actually get some beef in the rules that allows us to talk to the players and say, hey, we're talking about getting that pace of play going now seriously with the rules. So each player should recognize that his or her pace of play is likely to affect how long it will take those other players behind you to play. Obviously, that's what's going to happen, and that's why this is in the rules. So we keep that in mind, and players are encouraged to allow those faster groups to play through. Okay? It's encouraged, not allowed, or excuse me, not a must. But if something's happening where a group is delaying, the rules of golf now say we want you to play through. Okay? It's a good addition to the rules. The player should play at a prompt pace throughout the round, including time. Again, the word should is there. We don't have an automatic penalty if somebody is violating this certain rule. Yeah?
Are we going to allow players to take their groups to play through in our events?
Are we going to allow players to play through in our events? In certain situations we do, but we're not going to let the players do it on their own. We want those groups to stay in position. So, all right, so the prompt pace of play is the player should prepare and make prepare for and make each stroke in a certain amount of time. Ready golf. They're really getting into this prompt pace of play thing for the new rules, and it's addressed many times and in different situations of the rules book. Okay, moving from one place to another. So you could have unreasonable delay if you're not walking straight to your ball or taking your cart to your ball, if you're just kind of wandering around on your own, looking for golf balls in the woods or something like that would be an example. We need you to move to the next teeing ground quickly, or excuse me, teeing area quickly. Okay? And a player should prepare in advance for that stroke and be ready to play. Okay? Like I love this being in the rules now that we can tell the player, you know, your pace of play is addressed specifically in the rules. So when it's player's turn to play, it's recommended that the player make the stroke in 40 seconds. It's a very good benchmark to have. Okay? This 40 seconds will be involved a lot when we're talking about a group that is on the clock. We will use this specifically. But again, just because you have 40 seconds it says in the rules and it says should, we're not going to penalize a player if they're at 45 seconds or something like that. We may have a discussion with them if it keeps happening. It's not an automatic penalty.
So with this 40 seconds, it's got to be a start time and a stop time.
Correct.
What's the
What is the start time for the 40-second clock to go off? It's when it's the player's turn to play and he's had a reasonable amount of time to get to his ball. Okay, so when the ball is at rest in the fairway, for example, we're going to let that player get all the way from the tee up to the fairway, and if somebody else is playing, that clock hasn't started for this player yet. But when that stroke is made and that other player's ball's at rest, I think we've got a good point to start that clock. Okay? And there's no black and white answer to that, but we don't want to have some sort of starting time for that clock to be really back behind and say, okay, well, he's over in the cart, let's wait for him to get to his ball. No, when it's his turn, and we know what that means, and the committee can decide what that means, then the clock starts.
Well, that's a good idea when the other player makes a stroke at the ball, hits the ball.
Right.
That may be a good
Well, it's not just when the player makes a stroke at the ball, because the ball has to fly, the ball has to come to rest, he may be having to play a provisional, some things like that. So when his ball is at rest and he's not to play another stroke, then I think we can start the clock. But just because he makes contact or something like that, we don't need to start the clock right away. So, and it makes sense when we're out on the golf course, when you'll see when to start that clock. Yep.
I've had a situation where two players in the group were complaining about a player who was taking a lot of time.
Sure.
And this player was taking as much as a minute to play a shot, and he was always taking 45 seconds.
Okay.
Now, they weren't out of position. What as an official should you do if they're not out of
Okay.
position?
So if we have a group of 3, for example, and one of them is consistently taking a little bit extra time to play their strokes and the other 2 are complaining about it or are not the ones that are taking their time, the official in that situation should at least let the one player know that, hey, we've got a situation that's going on where we see you're taking too much time. Okay? And this is probably what we would rather have the official talk to our rover or talk to the official in charge before this is done. And usually pace of play situations with officials are handled by the rover or handled at scoring or handled by the chief rules official. So the individual rules official won't have to really make the penalty, but you can encourage a player at any time to say, hey, I see it took you a minute to play that last stroke. You might want to pick it up a little bit. So, all right. Playing out of turn to help pace of play. This has never been a penalty within the rules of golf for playing out of turn, but it's been discouraged. Now it's encouraged. Okay, so it's a great change in the rules for ready golf to get going. So in match play, players may agree to play out of turn to save time. Okay, currently the rule, that's okay. If Jack and I are playing a match, and Jack has to stop and go to the bathroom, he says, go ahead and tee off on 10. Todd, go ahead. Not a problem. Okay, we can do that. All right, and stroke play, we want the players to play ready golf. Okay, so if we get in a situation where somebody is out and it's their turn to play, but they have a difficult shot, or they're not sure what to do, the other players can go ahead and play. And they don't even really need the permission of that other player. They just need to do it with some reasonable judgment. They say, okay, it's safe, I'm going to go ahead and play. Okay? There doesn't have to be a permission here. The rules don't say that. They want it just to play ready golf. So, do you have a question?
So I was thinking in match play, like you're playing, somebody's playing a different tee than you are.
Mm-hmm.
Can you make that a blanket? If you're playing from a forward tee, you go
Yeah,
ahead.
so the question is, if you're playing a match and we have different sets of tees, a forward and a back tee or something like that, can you make a blanket statement to say you're going to tee off first? And the new answer is yes. You can do that. That's fine. To save time. The rule says right there, match play players may agree to play out of turn to save time.
That's before
Mm-hmm.
the match.
That's fine. That's fine. All right. So with this pace of play, the committee has some responsibility involved with this as well. And so to encourage to enforce that play, the committee should adopt a local rule setting the pace of play policy. What is that pace of play policy? And for all of our KCGA rules officials here, you've got the Ragusa sheet. That is our pace of play policy. We have a certain amount of time we expect each hole to be played, and we expect each group to be in position in relation to the group in front of them. That's our pace of play policy. So if you fall 14 minutes behind the group in front of you, and you're off your time par, both things have to happen for you to be out of position, not just one of the two, then that's our pace of play policy. We've got it laid out there. So now we've got a group out of position, and we can start looking at individual people if we need to. Okay. Yep.
KCGA specifically, but do you get the sense that most amateur events are going to just say play ready golf in a stroke play event?
Are most amateur associations going to play ready golf? I think so. I think that these rules are going to encourage it, and it's going to start catching on, and you're going to see a lot of people playing quicker just because the rules want you to. Yeah, I do believe that. All right. Stopping play and resuming play. Here's where we got the situations I told you we'd get into a little bit more specifically. During a round, a player must not stop play except in these cases. And again, stop play is, I'm not playing anymore, I'm leaving my position, I'm going off the golf course. It's not delaying play, it's stopping play. Okay? When can a player do that? A player can do that if the committee suspends play. Obviously, we want that to happen. Stopping play by agreement in match play. Players may agree to stop play for any reason, except if doing that will delay play. Okay, so if two players in a match just decide to stop play by agreement, and they just kind of sit there in the middle of the fairway and just kind of have a sandwich or do something crazy like that, now they might be taking care of some issues behind them. Now we've got a situation where they're actually getting the play bottled up, and now we have a penalty situation. But so, because the match is specific to just the two sides, it's okay for them to agree to stop play. Okay, here's what we talked about. In individual stopping play because of lightning, a player may stop play if he or she reasonably believes there is danger from lightning. Very common sense rule there. Okay? There is an interesting situation that I have come across in a couple of different situations throughout my years in the game where a player thought there was lightning, but the committee is like, it's nowhere near. Okay? And in that situation, there's actually an interpretation that talks about that. If the committee believes there is no danger from lightning, the player does not have the right to stop play in that situation. If it's clear that there is no lightning in the area or no danger, and that rule says it, if he or she reasonably believes, okay? So if there's lightning 1,000 miles away, I'm stopping play. Probably not going to be a good one right there, so.
With these new apps, like WeatherBug, have lightning
Right.
8 miles away or 10
Sure.
miles. Well, I'm stopping
Sure,
play.
sure. And that's up to the player. And in that situation, I would hope that the committee would understand and say, we've got lightning 8 miles away. The player's right. But if the committee comes to a decision, speaking from rules specifically, the player cannot stop play in that situation. But that's hopefully will never happen. Okay?
What about if lightning's not visible, but you hear thunder? And I've always heard now, if you hear thunder, you could get struck by lightning.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the hearing and...
Yeah, what's the difference between actually seeing lightning versus hearing thunder in the distance and so on and so forth? If the player thinks that it's close enough to cause an issue, we're going to let them be okay with that. And you should, if we're running an event and Doug and I are standing outside, or I'm out there with anybody else, and we hear thunder, you see our head snap. We immediately are going to be, as a committee, get to that position. Turns out it's usually a golf cart rolling over a bridge, though. It's never thunder.
For 2019, what will the KCGA's enforcement be on the distance for lightning?
It'll be the same as we're doing it. I don't see a change in that. If we have a lightning strike within 10 miles, our lightning detector will go off. And yeah, so that's not going to change. So, what's that? 10 miles. Yep.
High school, say, doesn't make any difference.
No, it doesn't make any difference. It's whatever the committee has set up. Okay. All right, so leaving the course in itself is not stopping play. And the best example of that is if you go out of bounds to pick up your golf ball. Okay, you've left the course because the out of bounds isn't the golf course. We're not going to penalize you for doing that. Okay, so just leaving the golf course isn't necessarily going to cause a penalty in that situation. But if a player stops play for any reason not allowed under this rule, that player is disqualified. Okay. What players must do when the committee suspends play? Okay. 2 types of committee suspensions that we have. Okay. Immediate suspension, such as when there's imminent danger. Okay. So if the committee declares an immediate suspension of all players must stop play at once. Okay. No further strokes may be made, no matter where you are on the golf course. If you have a 1-foot putt on 18 and we suspend play, you have to stop. Okay. The committee should use a distinct method of telling players about the immediate suspension. We use the 1 long blast, very common. So just hold it down for a while. That tells people to get off the course immediately. And then there's the normal suspension. So if we have heavy rain or darkness or something like that where we're going to suspend play, okay, the normal suspension, if the committee suspends play for the normal reasons, really what happens next depends on where the group is. Okay, and this is not a change. This is moving forward with the same situation that we have currently. If the players are between 2 holes, they must stop and not make another stroke. So if they finish 7, they can't play 8 if we suspend play before they tee off on 8. Okay? But if one player in that foursome tees off on 8, can the entire foursome play number 8? Yes. Yeah, the group has begun that hole before that suspension, that's fine. But if the horn goes off before that, between holes, you cannot start a new hole. Okay? While we're playing the hole, if any player in the group has started the hole, the players may choose either to stop play or play out the hole. See, I'm like you, Carol, I'm just thinking ahead. I knew that was coming up right there. So, players are allowed a brief amount of time, which is normally no more than 2 minutes. And this is a neat little thing I like about the rules. It's not only there are examples in here, but there's also some little statements that say, okay, what does that mean? Well, that means 2 minutes. Okay? Not a hard and fast 2 minutes, but about 2 minutes. So we're going to not let the players kind of dilly-dally and think about it and so on and so forth, but we're going to give them a little bit of time. So a good little benchmark there within the rules themselves. So they'll have that time to decide if they're going to finish the hole or if they're going to go ahead and stop play. If the players continue to play the hole, they may complete the hole or they may stop at some other point. Just because you decide to play on, you don't have to finish the hole. You can stop at any time right after that, but you can't go on to the next hole. Once the players complete that hole or stop play before completing the hole, they must not make another stroke until the committee says you can. Okay? For this situation, we use the beep, beep, beep. That means you can finish the hole if you want, or you can come on in. It's up to you. All right, what happens if players do not agree what to do? Okay? So in match play, if an opponent stops play, the player must also stop play, and both players must not play again until the committee resumes play. So if the player does not stop play, he gets the general penalty. So Bob and I are playing a match. It's getting dark. I'm like, Bob, I can't see anymore. I'm done. Bob can't go on and keep on playing. Okay? We have to stop play at that point. We'll talk a little bit about resuming play here in a little bit. Stroke play. Any player in the group may choose to stop play or go on to continue the hole, no matter what everybody else in the group does. It's up to the individual player, but that player has to have a marker with them. Player just can't go on and the other 3 in the group just go in. If that guy doesn't have a marker, we're not going to let him play. Okay? Breach of doing this is disqualification, except if the penalty is waived if the committee feels that there was a justification. A good example of a justification was, well, I didn't hear the horn. Okay? So if we have that one beep and we tell everybody to get off the course, somebody in the back end of the golf course keeps on playing, we're going to go ahead and say, all right, you couldn't hear the horn, we get you, no problem, no penalty there. Bill, you had a question?
Good question. When the marker continues with the player to finish that hole, the marker does not have to play. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Does the marker have to continue playing with that player? And the answer is no. The marker himself does not have to continue playing. In fact, the marker might not even be a player in that group. The marker could just be assigned to the committee to get out there. So good question, but yeah, he doesn't have to play if he doesn't want to.
The player says, could I have a marker? Could you be my marker? And I said, no, I'm tired, I'm gone. Everybody's gone. So the player can't play.
Player can't play. Yeah, if the player is looking for a marker and nobody wants to be his marker, they want to go in, or they're tired, or it's too dark, or it's too rainy, the player cannot continue. He has to have a marker with him. This rule specifically says that. So.
It has to be that assigned marker, right?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. If we have a marker and that player wants to finish the hole, I can sign off on it. I would rather, as a rules official, I'd rather him do it. Okay? But it says a marker, not the marker.
It says
The player's marker? Maybe I'm wrong on that one. I think you're right there. I think, yeah, I didn't read deep enough into that rule. Yeah, it says the player's marker. So to correct the answer, yes, the player's marker has to be with him. Thanks for pointing that out, and thanks for catching me on that one. Bruce?
Did it used to be that if a group is playing and the play is suspended and they're between holes, if they decide to go ahead and play, they can, but if they stop for a moment and they say, well, I don't know if we need to, and then they continue to play, they're penalized.
Right, yeah, and the question was if, and you mentioned between holes.
Right.
Okay, we're going to, and the rule currently and the rule moving forward is,
I mean, during the play.
okay, so during the play of a hole, a group decides to stop, but then they start again and they want to stop again. Okay, and the new rules allow that. The old rules were a little different. And it depended on some situations. But we're not really too concerned about the old rules anymore, unless you're going to go play in the next 3 weeks. Yeah, it is a little bit of a change. It is, yep. All right, so when we're resuming play, okay, player must resume play from where he or she stopped play on the hole or if between two holes at the next teeing area, even if play is resumed on a later day. Pretty straightforward there. Okay. The player must be present at the location identified in what we just talked about and be ready to play. You're going to see a copy of the rules that we talked about here coming up. At the time set by the committee for play to resume, and the player must resume play and not before that time. And if the ability to resume play is delayed for any reason, again, if you're starting on 7 and there's a group out there in 7 fairway, we're not going to penalize you if you didn't start at our restarting time of 9 o'clock because there's somebody out there. Same as your starting time for the first hole. But if you start in that situation, not at the time, whether it's too early, too late, you're going to be DQ'd with those 3 exceptions still in place. So it's the same exact rule as your first starting time. Okay. Okay, lifting a ball when play stops, replacing it and substituting it when we get back out there. So lifting a ball when play stops, when you stop a hole under this rule, the player may mark the spot of the ball and lift it. Okay? That's one of the options that we can do. You can leave it out there if you want. You can mark it and leave it out there. You can do whatever you want. Either way, we need to know where that ball is. You can't just pick it up. So like even if lightning strikes, you can't just run and scoop up your ball and go. Better put a mark on it. Okay?
May mark.
Or you may leave it in play. That's what may means in that situation. You may mark it, or you may leave it there where it is. All right, when the player's ball was lifted and when play was stopped, the player must replace the original ball or another ball. Pretty straightforward there that we can substitute in that situation on the original spot. And if it's not known, we're going to estimate it. Okay? So like if, for example, you forget where it's marked after it got washed away or something like that, we're going to estimate that spot. Okay? And are we going to drop it or are we going to place it? We're going to place it. We're going to place it. And that was also the current rule. We've always placed a ball coming out of a delay. So that doesn't change. Yeah?
Is placing the ball back in the new rules back to the area where you most likely left it before?
It's
Be in a place where you estimate where the ball was. So we're basically going from grass to sand or sand to grass.
You're always going to replace the ball. There's a difference between placing and replacing. And in a stoppage of play, we are actually replacing the ball because it was in a spot, and we're going to replace it on that spot, on that exact spot. And if we don't know that exact spot, that's when we're going to estimate it. But we would know if it was on grass or sand, and we keep it on grass or sand in that situation. You're not going to change in that situation. All right. So when a player's ball was not lifted when play was spot, the player may play the ball as it lies or may mark the spot of the ball and lift it and replace that ball. Okay? So if you just lightning strikes and you run straight into the clubhouse and you just leave your ball there, this is what this rule's covering. So when you come out and get ready to play, you're allowed to mark it, but you have to mark it, lift it, clean it, replace it, whatever you want to do with it. So once you come back into play, just because you haven't marked it, you still retain those options. It lets you do this when you come back to resume play from a stop. So in either of those cases that we just talked about, if the lie of the ball is altered as a result of lifting the ball, the player must replace that ball or substitute another ball in that situation. Okay, so we'll have a situation here coming up where we'll talk about what do we do if we can't get the ball back in the exact same spot because of water or because of sand. We'll get into that very specifically here coming up. Okay. If the lie of the ball is altered after the ball was lifted and before a ball is replaced, this rule does not apply. All right, let me tell you what this means. This is kind of confusing, but I got through it myself when I found a question about it. So if we got a ball in a bunker, okay, we mark it. Play is stopped, and while we're in there, it's raining, whatever, and before we get back out there, the maintenance crew comes back out, smooths out the bunkers, gets everything perfect for play again, okay? Let's say that original ball was plugged in the bunker. Rule 14.2d does not apply, means that we're going to replace it on the spot, but you don't put it back in the exact same condition. 14.2b means recreating the lie. This situation is not covered. So like if my ball is buried in the bunker and it rains and they fix the bunker, I just got to put it on the spot. I don't have to recreate the lie. Kind of an interesting, different little rule here, but it says it right there in 5.7d. So that rule does not apply.
And the same would be true if the bunker washed out and you had marked it. You have to go back to that spot.
You go back to that spot. Yeah, so even if your lie is worsened. Yeah, even if your lie is worsened, you're still going to replace it on that spot. Absolutely. So the original ball or another ball must be replaced on that original spot. That's exactly what this is talking about. Just replace it on that spot, but don't recreate the lie in this very, very rare situation. So don't get yourself too hung up on this one. But that's, when I was reading that rule, my brain started to kind of hurt too. So I was just like, what's going on here? But that's exactly what they're talking about. But again, it's not going to happen that much. So if the lie or other conditions affecting the stroke were worsened during this time, Rule 8.1d applies, restoring the conditions. And so there are situations where we do restore it, but there are situations that we do not. And when you follow these rules, it will get you to the right place. And next week, when we talk about 8.1d, it'll clear this up even more. Well, hopefully a little bit.
So you get relief from this now?
Sure. Yeah. Would a player be entitled to relief from, temporary water? I almost said another bad word. Yeah, you're entitled to relief in that situation. So even if you replace a ball back in a situation, this is where you were, your Titleist 1 was in that spot, and you've replaced it back into the temporary water, now you can proceed under that rule if you want. But you don't have to.
It's got to go back in the puddle first.
Doesn't have to. Doesn't have to. If you have it marked.
Well, you mark it.
If you have it marked, then you can proceed underneath that rule. Oh, okay. Yeah. And the question was, you have to replace the ball first? If it's marked, no. You can proceed under the gosh darn it, the temporary water rule if the ball is marked. You don't have to put the ball down and then start the whole procedure. All right, so what do we do if that ball marker or the ball is moved during the play while stopped? If the player's ball or ball marker is moved in any way before play resume, including natural forces such as wind or water washing it away, the player must either replace the original ball or another ball on the original spot, which is not known as estimated. Okay, so ball's washed away or the ball marker's washed away, we can replace it or we can substitute it, but we're going to replace it on that spot. Place a ball marker or mark on that original spot and then replace the original ball or another ball on that spot. And if the player's conditions affecting the stroke were worsened while play was stopped, we're going to see Rule 8.1d again. So what do we do if the conditions have changed? And now seems like a good time to talk about it, but it's really not. It's a better time when we talk about it next week. It really is, when we start talking about all these different conditions. You'll see as a theme throughout the rules that they are very uniform. And so like this Rule 8.1d that we're going to talk about is really going to clear everything up for the rest of the rules. So if we just keep talking about them one at a time, it kind of confuses things. And that's how the rules are actually written now moving forward. Jeff, you have a question?
Yeah, so tomorrow we got cameras on phones, just take a picture of where you were.
Yeah. Can we take a picture of where we were? Yeah, and so that you know where the ball was.
Yeah.
Does that constitute marking the ball? Is that what you're asking?
I'm not asking that, I just was saying, so in case ball marker,
Sure.
an area that you think could get washed away or something.
Absolutely, and that will help you in the estimation. Yeah, it's a great way to do it. So, and it also may help you with the lie if that becomes an issue under 8.1d. So, very good idea.
But that's not constituted as a mark.
No, it does not constitute marking the ball. So if we took a picture of the spot and lifted our ball without a mark down there, we are not physically marking the ball. That would not be a marked ball. You'd be liable for penalty. Does the competitor need to watch while you place the ball? And the answer is no. No. A lot of the new rules talk about the player's responsibility and giving that player that responsibility to do these things on their own. There's not a lot of announcing that needs to happen, other than a provisional, so on and so forth. But you don't have to tell a player what you're doing when you're lifting or cleaning or marking, so on and so forth. So playing a ball from a wrong place is under a breach rule 5.7d. So if we don't put the ball back in the right place, we're going to get penalized if we're not using our best judgment, which we talked about in Rule 1 last week. Okay. Any other questions before we get into this one for you? I think I might have a couple questions for you. Jack?
Is time par mentioned anywhere or recommended, like 12 for a par 3, 14 for a
Yeah.
par 4?
Is time par, like a certain amount of time, recommended in the rules specifically? No, not in the rules. So a committee can do that, absolutely. If a committee wants 8 minutes to play a hole, they can do that. If it's a special event, obviously, we wouldn't want to force players to do that. But yeah, there's not a specific black and white number that says how many minutes to play a hole. Left up to the committee. All right, the 36-hole one-day stroke play event between rounds. Taylor, who just took a new job out here, goes onto the course and plays the 14th hole. A committee member becomes aware of the situation. What's the ruling? What's going to happen to Taylor here? Because she played a practice, got on the course between rounds. No penalty, this is allowed? Or do we have a penalty? The other 4 penalties. Okay, so it's between rounds of a 36-hole, one-day stroke play event. Has she completed her final round for the day? No. Now do we have a penalty? Yep. And it's going to be applied for the first hole of her next round because she is practicing on the course before her round. She happened to play 18 holes earlier, but now she's going to play 18 more and she can't go out there. First day on the job, you're getting penalties. So yeah, practice is not allowed in stroke play on the course before a round. However, Taylor would be allowed to practice after her second round. So she could get out there because her round is done for the day. In this case, she'll be penalized 2 strokes for the first hole for round 2. All right, in a stroke play event, after playing the 8th hole without delaying play, Todd drops a ball into a red penalty area next to the green and plays a practice stroke under the green. The committee member becomes aware of the situation. What is the ruling? Well, it's a Todd question. I don't think the USGA is going to pick up on that, but no penalty. I mentioned this briefly earlier. Like if you practice from a penalty area, you're okay as long as you don't delay play. Okay. Bunker, you cannot practice from. With a ball. With a ball. You can putt and chip on the green that you just played from, even from a penalty area, as long as it's near the green. You can't go back to that 150-yard marker and take a practice stroke there. But if it's around the green, you're okay, as long as you don't delay play. This is a bit of a change. Okay, but the stroke must not be made from a bunker. Kind of a tricky little situation there. You know, and please don't look at this ruling as trying to trick you up. But it's actually kinder to the player. It really is. It allows the player a little bit more. Yep.
You mentioned that bunker a couple of times. If someone hits a bunker shot and in disgust takes another swing, is that practice?
So if somebody hits a bunker shot and in disgust hits the sand with another swing, is that practice? No. 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 You know, the player's allowed to do that in anger. You know, again, the rules are kinder. We are going to see that. If they leave it in the bunker and they slam it in there, it allows it. As long as they don't do it next to the ball. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right, that's rule 5. Any other questions about playing around before we get into a little bit more specific? Right?
You didn't say that you could hit a practice ball onto the green out of that penalty area, just a practice stroke.
Yeah, you can hit it anywhere you want.
But you can't hit a ball, right?
You can hit a ball. Absolutely. A practice stroke involves a ball. What's the definition of a stroke?
So I can practice chipping onto the green before it's my turn?
Not before. After the play of a hole. After the play of a hole.
Okay, so they won't drop another ball.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, during the play of the hole, let's make sure we're clear on that. If I said during the play of the hole, I hope I didn't, but you cannot make practice strokes during the play of the hole. After the play of the hole, you are allowed to make practice strokes by putting or chipping on the putting green of where you just played or near that putting green, as long as it's not in a bunker. So a red penalty area is okay. And of course, another option is you could go to the teeing area of the next hole. Ron? We allow practicing. Yeah, we don't have it on our hard card to take practice strokes away. The PGA Tour doesn't allow it as well. So, is that, yeah, yeah.
Is that after everyone's played?
That is after everyone has played, yes. Yes, good question. All right. Let's move on to playing a hole now. All right, so like I said, I really like how these rules are divided up. We talked about the general playing of a round, what goes on, practice, and all that good stuff. But now let's talk about the actually playing of a hole. Lower it down a little bit. So we'll talk about starting the play of the hole, and then the teeing area rules, which are very interesting and changed. A lot of different situations can happen there. We'll talk about the ball used in the play in the hole, talk about substitutions a little bit deeper as well, order of play, and then when the hole is done. Here's our purpose, covers how to play the hole. Specific rules for teeing off to start a hole. The requirement to use the same ball for the entire hole, except when substitution is allowed. Okay, the order of play, which is really more important in match play than in stroke play, and how to complete this hole. Okay, here's some changes. The teeing area is now the teeing area, not the teeing ground. No big deal. But it's 2 club lengths in depth as measured by the player's longest club that is not a putter. This sounds like it's the same as the teeing ground, but it is a little bit different. And the little difference is your club is defined for you. It's your longest club in your bag that's not your putter. Instead of any club that you want, it's the longest club in your bag that's not your putter. That's true for measurement across the board. Anytime, highlighted, bold, underlined. Keep that in mind. A ball is in the teeing area. There's no penalty for accidentally or deliberately. That's everything, right? That's every possibility, okay, for moving the ball even when it's in play. And this includes moving it somewhere else in the teeing area. A little crazy, but it's also a pretty rare situation. Not many times we have a ball in play in the teeing area. But why is this change made? It makes the rule uniform for whenever the ball is in that teeing area, whether it's not in play or whether it is in play. It really just kind of makes the rule flat across the board. Okay, we talked about the recommendations to play ready golf again and allowing play out of turn and match play. So there it is. 2 rules in a row. We're talking about pace of play again. All right, a player has started a hole when he or she makes a stroke to begin the hole. The hole is started even if the stroke was made from outside the teeing area or if the stroke was canceled. So once that stroke was made, that hole has started.
If you agree to let someone play out a turn and match play, you can't call a stroke.
Correct. Correct. If we agree to have somebody play out a turn and match play, that does not allow you to recall that stroke then. So if Brew and I are playing a match and it's my turn to play and I say, go ahead, Brew, and he holds it, I'm like, oh, no, we're not. I'm very lucky. You got to play that one. We played out of order. Can't do that. Once I allow him to do it, he gets to make that stroke and it stands. Okay? Ball must be played inside the teeing area. So a player must start each hole by playing from anywhere inside the teeing area. A player who is starting a hole plays the ball from outside the teeing area, including from a wrong set of tee markers or a different location. We've got some situations we're going to cover. So this is just telling us, hey, start in the teeing area. Match play, there's no penalty. Currently the same rule. But the opponent may cancel the stroke. This must be done promptly before either player makes another stroke. And when the opponent cancels the stroke, it cannot be withdrawn. Okay? So it has to happen immediately.
Okay, so in A, it talks about the holes begin if you teed off from outside the teeing area.
Correct?
But then it turns right around and says you have to tee off within the teeing area.
Sure.
So you're just saying if they tee off outside the teeing area,
The hole has begun.
the hole's begun, but you can still require
Sure.
your opponent.
Absolutely.
Within the
Yeah, and the hole has begun because now, and one situation there is once the hole has begun, we could agree to a halved hole in that situation. So there has to be a definition for another rule to be affected somewhere. So I know it doesn't make sense like what you're saying, but the hole has to have a definition of when it starts. Okay, so again, a match play, there's no penalty. This withdrawal of the stroke or the cancellation of the stroke must happen immediately. When Brew plays out a turn, this time, with penalty, or not with penalty, but with me being able to recall it, he hits his stroke and I said, I'm going to hit first and see what happens. Can't do that. Okay, I have to immediately recall it or let it play. Okay, again, it cannot be withdrawn. I can't say, now I changed my mind. If the opponent does not cancel the stroke counts and the ball is in play. So if for some reason Brew goes up in real short par 3 and he tees off from the fringe and he makes it for a 1 and we're supposed to be 100 yards back and I don't say anything, he makes a 1 in match play. Stroke play is a different rule. We'll talk about that. So it's up to you to defend your own rights within your own match. All right, stroke play, the player gets the general penalty and must correct the mistake by playing a ball from inside the teeing area. Same rule that we currently are under. The ball played from outside the teeing area is not in play. Okay, but the hole is underway. The ball's not in play. So what does that mean? If we hit that ball out of bounds, for example, when we come back, we have to get inside the teeing area. What is our next stroke going to be? Third. Why not the 5th? Ball's not played, the stroke doesn't count. Okay, and you'll see that as we're coming up here. The stroke and more strokes before the mistake is corrected, including strokes made and any penalty strokes solely from that ball, do not count. So if I play from outside the teeing area and I play the entire hole and hit 6 balls out of bounds, move my ball in play 3 times, and make a 27, I'm going to go back to the tee and hit 3. Everything doesn't count in that situation for that ball because it was never in play. But if a player does not correct the mistake before making a stroke on the next hole or for the final hole before returning your scorecard, you're going to be disqualified. Same rules now, except that highlighted area is a different definition of your final hole. Okay.
Todd, that gets into the end of the round.
Mm-hmm.
Turning in your scorecard or holding your ball on the 18th
Mm-hmm.
on the last hole.
Mm-hmm. What do those mean? Okay, what this rule means, does holding your ball on the 18th mean anything as far as this rule is concerned? No. You can still correct the error. Holding your ball on any hole doesn't mean anything. You still can correct your error. It's teeing off on the next hole, or on the final hole, it's returning your scorecard. And it used to be walking off that last green. They changed it to returning your scorecard for the last hole. So you could have your ball teed up on the next hole and still correct the error, as long as you don't make a stroke on the next hole.
Only in a competition.
What do you mean?
In other words, if you're just playing a round of golf, there is nowhere to turn in your scorecard except to post your score.
Well, it's like you're talking about a competition, but the rules still would apply. The rules still apply returning your scorecard. Okay? If you're just out there playing by yourself and you play outside the teeing area and you know that you've got to correct that area, first of all, if you go back and correct it, big thumbs up to you for actually playing by the rules by yourself there. But there's going to be a definition by posting your score might be it. So like just walking off the green and like, oh wait, I forgot, I played the blue tees instead of the blacks. You can go fix it with just the 2-stroke penalty. Bruce.
In a case where the scoring area is a long way from the last green,
Mm-hmm.
and the guy goes to the scoring area and he realizes that he didn't play from the tee,
Mm-hmm.
that's not undue delay?
No, it's not undue delay. So like if we have a long distance from the 18th green or the last green, depending on, it could be a shotgun, from there to the scoring area, if the player is making his motion to the scoring area without delay, taking his time or whatever, he's still within this rule. He's not unreasonably delaying play in this situation. So he has to go back if he wants to post a score. Absolutely. And a great example of that is the shotgun. If a player is on the far end of the golf course and they finish their round and they're coming in and they, oh wait, he still has to go all the way back if he wants to post a score from playing outside the wrong teeing area. We'll have to figure it out. Yeah, we'd have to figure that out. All right, here we go. 6.2a, one of the biggest changes in the rules for this specific rule. There's a bunch of other changes, of course. The teeing area rules in 6.2b apply whenever a player is required or allowed to play a ball from the teeing area. Okay? So this includes the player starting to play the hole that we just talked about. Ball's in the teeing area. Those rules apply. The player will play again from the teeing area. For example, a canceled stroke, stroke in distance. Those are examples there. These rules apply for the teeing area. A player's ball is in play in the teeing area after a stroke or after the player has taken relief. So a whiff, a ball hitting a tree and coming back into the teeing area. Those are, your ball is in play, you've made a stroke. The rules still apply, they're still the same. But this rule applies only to the teeing area the player must play from in starting the hole he or she is playing, not to any other teeing locations. Okay, the word teeing locations, it's not teeing area. They're talking about like where some other tee markers may be. This picture example here, this player has a teeing area back here, but there's a forward set of tees. That's not his teeing area. These rules will not apply in that yellow box on that screen to that player for this hole. When a ball is in the teeing area, when any part of it is touching or above any part of the teeing area. This is the same rule that it currently does. If any part of that ball is within that teeing area that is defined by the 2 club links and the outside edges of the tee markers, it is in the teeing area. Player may stand outside the teeing area and making a stroke at a ball in the teeing area. Ball may be teed or played from the ground. The ball must be played either on a tee or the ground itself. And notice we're now past the point where it doesn't say starting the play of the hole. So if that ball is in play or in the teeing area, you can do this. These rules apply. If you hit the tree and the ball comes back in the teeing area, you can tee it up. You can move it to a different part of the tee. You can substitute it. You can do all kinds of different things in the teeing area now. No penalty. No penalty. These rules apply anytime your ball's in the teeing area. Again, rare situation, but it keeps the... oh, yeah. I bet in your group you see it happen a lot.
It's not that rare with JV high school
No, it probably isn't, yeah. It probably isn't rare with high school. Yes?
So is the teeing area defined as 2 club lengths depth, or is it the entire teeing area?
What is the teeing area defined as? I'll be coming up there here in a second, but I'll go ahead and we'll answer it real quick. It's defined as the 2 tee markers that we have, the outside edges of it, 2 club lengths back, that rectangle that is created.
So if you're outside that, then you're not in.
Right. Make sure we know the difference between teeing area and where a tee might be. A teeing location's a box. Words that aren't used in the rules. You know, like the cut down area.
So if you're outside that 2 club lengths,
Yep. Those rules do not apply and your ball is in the general area. That is a very good question. Yeah, your ball has to be in the teeing area for these rules to apply, and it is a very small area. It is a very small area. There was a round that the staff, we played last, or I think earlier in the spring, we went out to Country Creek, and we played around out there, and we came to the 3rd hole, I think, and I am not exaggerating when I say the tee markers were 20 yards apart. There was like one here and then one 20 yards over there. So that was a really weird-looking rectangle for the teeing area. It was 20 yards long and 2 club lengths this way, but that's the teeing area. Not just that pad, but the teeing area is a very defined area. Okay, for the purposes when we talk about the ground includes any sand or any natural materials put in place to set the tee or the ball on. So like if we use a little bit of sand to build up a little mound there, by this rule that counts as the ground. The player must not make a stroke at a ball on a non-conforming tee or a ball teed in a way not allowed by this rule. Okay, so if we use a non-conforming tee, we're in violation of this rule. Currently that penalty is disqualification. 2019, it's just going to be the general penalty. So if you use a non-conforming tee, it's going to cost you 2 strokes. But if you do it again, you're going to be disqualified. So a little softer on that rule. So if you got one hole that you really need that non-conforming tee, it's only going to cost you 2 strokes. So
you use a non-conforming tee and you just add 2 strokes to the final.
Right. If you use a non-conforming tee, the stroke counts, but you're just going to add 2 strokes to it. It's not a replay or anything like that. All right. Certain conditions in the teeing area may be improved. This is really not a change of what we're currently using. Before making a stroke, a player may take these actions in the teeing area to improve the conditions affecting the stroke, alter the surface of the ground in the teeing area, such as making an indentation. The Laura Davies example, where she pounds her driver into the ground. She can do that if she hits her tee shot and it hits a tree and comes back in here. She can improve it again if she wants. These rules still apply. And she can move her ball onto that thing if she wanted to. Move, bend, or break grass, weeds, and any other natural objects that are attached or growing in the ground in the teeing area. Okay? So what does that mean about stuff that's overhanging into the teeing area? Can we break those? No. No. It says growing in the ground in the teeing area. Remove or press down sand or soil that's in the teeing area. We know we can't do that in the general area because that's not allowed, but it is allowed in the teeing area. You can remove dew, frost, and water in the teeing area if you want. But the player gets the general penalty if he or she takes any other action to improve the conditions affecting the stroke in breach of 8.1a, which is what I talked about, the stuff that's overgrowing. It's outside the teeing area, but it's hanging into it, over it. You cannot improve those areas. You just better tee it up in a different position. So if you got those limbs in your backswing, you can't just break those limbs down, unless that tree is growing in the teeing area, which is pretty rare. I've yet to see that happen. All right, and here's an important distinction too. This is a little bit of a change. Just keep your eyes open on this one. Restriction of moving tee markers when playing from the teeing area, highlighted, bold, italics. So the location of the tee markers is set by the committee to define each teeing area and should remain in that same location for all players who will play from that teeing area. Okay? If the player improves the conditions affecting the stroke by moving the tee markers by playing from the teeing area, you will get the general penalty. So if your ball is in play and you move the tee markers that are in your way, you are penalized. Whether it's your first stroke, your 20th stroke, or whatever. When your ball is in the teeing area, those tee markers are now fixed, period. That is a change.
Why would on 4, the first bullet, should remain in the same location?
Should. And there's an interpretation that talks about that. It talks about why does it say should instead of must. There's an interpretation that explains it a little bit better than I do, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that afterwards. So why does the word should come up there? The location of the tee markers is set by the committee. For each committee should remain in that same location. There's an interpretation that I will actually look up, and I can tell you guys about that. And I'll actually send you an email on it. Okay, it involves, it should happen. There's a penalty involved, but it's not disqualification, is what it kind of gets down to. But I'll send that interpretation to everybody. So in all other situations, the tee markers are treated as regular movable obstructions that may be removed as allowed. So when your ball's outside the teeing area, they're movable obstructions. You can move them at that point. When your ball's inside the teeing area, you cannot move those tee markers.
So an event with multiple tees, the ones other than your tee are still treated?
Now, the question is the ones with multiple tees, okay? What are the multiple tees to that player? Always obstructions. They are not part of your teeing area. So if you're playing from the blue tees, those white, red, gold, green, purple, orange, whatever, they're just simply movable obstructions to you. They have no definition at all.
Even if some of the field is playing?
Doesn't matter. Does not matter. Unless your partner's playing from those tees, but that's a different rule. The ball is not in play until the stroke is made within the teeing area, starting the play of the hole or when returning to the teeing area to play like for stroking distance or to play because of a cancellation of a stroke. Ball is not in play until that player makes a stroke at it, and the ball may be lifted and moved around within that teeing area. So we know when the ball is not in play, we can move it around and put it in a different area. Not in play until that stroke is made. So if a teed ball falls off the tee or is knocked off the tee by the player before the player's made a stroke, it may be reteed anywhere in the teeing area without penalty. The old little one where you're addressing the ball and you knock it off the tee and everybody goes, one. Yeah, it's not one. Wasn't a stroke. So you get to replace it, and you don't have to play from the same area. You can pick it up. You can put it over in a different area. The ball's not in play. You can substitute it. You can untee it. You can do whatever you want with it as long as you follow the rules within the teeing area. But if you do make a stroke at this ball as it's falling off the tee, there's no penalty, and the stroke counts and the ball is in play. So if you're taking it down here and that ball starts to roll off your tee and you make your stroke, and even if you don't hit it, you lay one and the ball's in play. But those teeing rules apply. So now you can re-tee it if you want. As long as your ball's in the teeing area, if it rolls out of the teeing area, then it's in the general area, then you don't get to re-tee it. So if your ball stays in the teeing area, in this special situation, you can re-tee it, you can move it around, but you do lay one. The stroke counts. All right, here's the definition of the teeing area and when the ball lays in it. If a player's ball plays in the teeing area after stroke, or when you're teeing it up, or when taking relief in any situation, all these examples here apply of when the ball is in the teeing area. The green check marks. A little sliver of that golf ball has to be in the teeing area for the ball to be in the teeing area. The whole ball doesn't have to be. Okay? But the whole ball out of the teeing area, then the ball is out of the teeing area. Okay? So when that ball is in the teeing area, you may lift or move the ball without penalty. You may play that ball or another ball from anywhere in the teeing area, from a tee in the ground or including it playing as it lies. Okay? And that example there is like, again, if you swing and miss, you lay one, but now you've got these options. You can re-tee it, you can substitute it, you can lift, clean it, place it, kick it around a little bit. You can really mess around with your partner there because the ball's not in play.
What if the ball was moved during a practice stroke?
What if the ball is moved during a practice stroke? Okay? If the ball is not in play and you make a practice stroke, did we make a stroke at the ball with the intent of striking it? No. So the ball does not become in play, and then you may re-tee it, or there is no penalty. No penalty for moving your ball with a practice stroke inside the teeing area. No penalty. Okay, ball used in the play of the hole. And there's a specific purpose listed with this rule because we're talking about substitutions being a little bit more free now. So the purpose really kind of hits that. So holes played is a progression of strokes made from the teeing area to the putting green and into the hole. After teeing off, the player is normally, there's an important word there, normally required to play the same ball until the hole is completed. The player gets a penalty for making a stroke at a wrong ball or a substituted ball when that substitution is not allowed by the rules. Okay? So pretty straightforward little explanation of what ball to use when we're playing one hole. There are examples that we can substitute it. We're going to get into. A player may play any conforming ball when starting a hole from the teeing ground and may change balls between two holes, not during the play of a hole. So you can't substitute a ball during the play of the hole, but you can substitute a ball between holes. It goes back to the statement that I've made for years, is you can never play a wrong ball from a teeing area. You can't. It's impossible. You can play a non-conforming ball, but you can't play a wrong ball. Is the USGA going to have a one-ball rule? Yes, they still have it in effect. Yeah, I've seen their hard card, and their one-ball rule is in effect. For the KCGA, it is not in effect. We do not use the one-ball rule. The player must hold out with the same ball played from the teeing area, except when it becomes lost. Well, thank you. Rules aren't going to penalize you more for substituting a ball when it's lost. Or the player substitutes another ball, and that's whether you're not allowed to. Okay, so you're still going to get a penalty if you're not allowed to, but not underneath this rule. You're going to get a penalty somewhere else. Okay, but that ball is in play, even if you're not allowed to do it. Okay? The player should put an identifying mark on the ball to be played. There's a should. Okay? You don't have to put a ball or a mark on your ball, but you should. Okay, let's talk about that substitution that we've hit quite a bit already. But when a player is allowed and not allowed to substitute a ball. So certain rules allow a player to change the ball he or she is using to play a hole by substituting another ball as the ball in play, and others do not. Okay. When taking relief under a rule, including either dropping or placing a ball, such as when the ball will not stay in the relief area, the player may use the original ball or substitute a ball. All right, straightforward. When you're dropping a ball, you can substitute it. Okay. When you're taking relief, whether it's free or penalty, you can substitute it. When you go drop, this is knee height, so everybody can see. When you go drop, and then have to place it, you can still substitute it in that situation. Okay? You're not replacing a ball. You're placing a ball. There's a difference there. So if you drop it, it goes out of the relief area, you can substitute. Drop it, it goes out of the relief area, you can substitute by placing it. So you could have 3 different balls there. Don't know why you would, but the rules allow it. When playing again from a previous stroke was made, the player may use the original ball or another ball. So if you've got to come back for stroke and distance, you don't have to go get the original ball. They're letting you substitute it. And when replacing a ball in a spot, the player is not allowed to substitute a ball and must use the original ball with some certain exceptions. Okay? So replacing a ball on a spot. Putting. You mark your ball, you lift it, you are replacing a ball. You cannot substitute it in that situation. If a ball was moved, was kicked by somebody, we replace it. Okay? Cannot substitute in that situation. Okay? And there's some certain exceptions that we will talk about in 14.2a and even a couple more moving into this rule that allows you to substitute it when you're replacing it. Like, for example, somebody plays your ball as a wrong ball. Doug and I are playing stroke play, and he hits my ball. I have to replace a ball on the spot because Doug played my ball. What if he hit it, onto a highway somewhere? I don't have to go get that one. The rule will allow me to replace it with a substitution. All right, the substituted ball becomes the ball in play when a player substitutes another ball as the ball becomes the ball in play. When is the ball in play? When we're dropping it. When it leaves your hand. Not when it comes to rest or anything like that. As soon as that ball drops off your fingers and starts flying through the air, that ball is in play as it is dropping. Okay? When we're replacing a ball, when does the ball become in play? When those fingers get off the ball. Okay? Original ball is no longer in play, even if it is at rest on the course. So if you have substituted a ball, that original ball is no longer a ball that you can use without penalty. It is no longer the ball in play. If you hit it, you got a wrong ball situation, even though it is your ball. This is true if you substitute another ball for the original ball when not allowed by the rules, whether or not that player realized he or she was doing something wrong there. So, for example, the putting. Okay, you replace it with your favorite putting ball. Okay, the replaced ball, the substituted ball, does become the ball in play, but you're still going to be penalized. But it is now the ball in play. And we have to have something happen so that we can make rulings on a ball in play. We can't have no ball in play at any time there. Okay, or if you replace, dropped, or placed the substituted ball in a wrong place or in a wrong way, or by using a procedure that does not apply. For example, we're taking lateral relief from a red penalty area, and we go 4 club lengths out and drop it. We've done it wrong, but that ball is in play. So if something happens to that ball, we're going to deal with it within the rules. So even if you did it wrong or did the whole procedure wrong, the ball still is in play. The correction rule still applies. Yes, we can still do the correction rule, and you can get off the hook of putting it in the wrong place. But while that ball is in its position, it is in play. Okay? Doesn't mean you're necessarily going to be penalized. It means you could be. Substituted ball becomes the ball in play when a player substitutes another ball as the ball in play. Also, for how to correct any error, we're going to talk about the super eraser rule later, 14.5 that you were talking about. So if we do something wrong, again, No penalty right away. It's for making a stroke in that situation. So if we substitute a ball incorrectly, we can get off the hook by picking it up and putting the original ball back in play. So if the player's original ball has not been found and the player put another ball in play to take stroke and distance, or is allowed by another rule, then we will know how to deal with this substitution situation. So there are, again, many situations that we cannot substitute the ball, but there are very few compared to what it is currently. The rule really allows us to substitute ball. And again, the best way to think about it, to summarize it, is whenever you're dropping, you may substitute. That's pretty much it right there. Okay, so best way to think about it. Okay, once we get that substituted ball in play, the player must continue playing with that substituted ball. You're going to be penalized, but you're going to keep playing with that ball in play. The player must not play the original ball even if it is found on the course before the end of the 3-minute search. What's a good example of this? How about a ball that goes into a penalty area, and we have virtual certainty it's in there. So we drop a ball correctly in the right way within the rules. We've substituted a ball. We make the stroke, and then we find the original ball within 3 minutes out in the fairway. It hit a rock or something. Here's an example where that original ball is out of play. Because we proceeded correctly, we've substituted a ball, we put another ball in play. Even though we found out that the ball wasn't in the penalty area, we had virtual certainty when we proceeded. Now, if we didn't have virtual certainty, it's a different rule. Okay? That original ball would stay in play within the 3 minutes. But since we proceeded under the rule, substituted a ball in play, and this even happens before we make a stroke. Okay? Because we put the ball in play. So once we put the ball in play, the original ball is lost. Cannot be used.
Putting green, guy marks his ball, and then he puts down a ball he thought was his original ball, and realizes it wasn't. He can't pick that ball up and replace it.
He can replace it. So a player puts a ball down. A player puts a ball. He's got his ball marked on the putting green, and he puts another ball down without knowing it. Okay? He substituted a ball, which he cannot do. He can fix that error before making a stroke. He can say, "Oh, ball's in play. The ball is in play." Yes, you're correct. Just because a ball is in play doesn't mean you're going to get a penalty. It's like it currently is. Yes, yes. Once you put a ball in play, you're not necessarily getting a penalty. It's the stroke that's going to be involved. So that's where the eraser rule, we'll cover that. All right. Here's where it talks about that. Making a stroke at an incorrectly substituted ball. If a player makes a stroke at an incorrectly substituted ball, you're going to get the general penalty. So in match play, it's just lost a hole. Pretty simple there. Stroke play, you're going to get 2 strokes, and the player must play out the hole with the incorrectly substituted ball. Okay, so you get 2 strokes, but this isn't one of those errors you fix. You just keep on playing with the 2 strokes added to your score. Okay, and if multiple rule breaches result, we're going to look at that 1.3c. So if we play from a wrong place or we clean it and so on and so forth, 1.3c4 will cover whether or not there's multiple penalties. You're going to see that sentence a lot in the rules. Underneath this rule, look underneath 1.3c if there's a multiple breach. It's a very common rule that we're going to be dealing with. Okay, the exception is the ball moving in water. Very common again. This happens a lot. But it's in there. But the change this year is it does include temporary water. So there's a little bit of a change there. If it's moving in water, whether it's in a penalty area or temporary water, there's no penalty for that. Oops. Here's where I got to click on here. Hopefully you give me enough space here. I can hear the sound, but it's not speaking. It's weird. It's got half the video or half the audio. We'll have to keep this one for how to not run an audio presentation. All right, so what's going on here in this situation? Maybe you guys have seen this this video before. Jamie Donaldson and Hunter Mahan have hit wrong balls. They've hit the wrong ball. They've hit each other's ball in this situation. And so what has to happen is they have to go back and correct the error. So they hit their tee shot basically over a hill, and Hunter went to the right side when he thought it was on the left, and Jamie went to the left side when he thought it was on the right, and they played their next strokes onto the green. So they both have played a wrong ball. Okay, so now this video has come back where they are now hitting their 4th shot because they've hit 1 off the tee, or excuse me, they hit 3 shots in the air, hitting their 4th shot. That's correct. So 1 off the tee, 2-stroke penalty for playing a wrong ball, hitting their 4th shot onto the green. And there's a lot of discussion going on about what to do if they hold out the ball. And we kind of already addressed this. If they hold out their ball, they're still okay to not get disqualified. They're not going to lose the 2-stroke penalty for playing a wrong ball, but they're going to go back and fix the error. And this happens to be the 18th hole, and they started on 10. So it was even a little more confusing when the announcers were talking about it because they have to go over to 1. And they're also saying, well, they go over to the 1st hole, and it's kind of, you know, the terminology of it's really weird. But the way that the wrong ball gets fixed is you have to go back before you tee off on the next hole, or you get disqualified. And Paul Azinger had a real tough time with the holding out part of it in this audio. He kept saying, well, what if you hold out? Then you're disqualified. No, it's the key method, or the key to this rule is when you tee off on the next hole. Okay? Sorry about the audio on that. There's half of it in there and half of it not. I don't get that one.
That part wasn't my fault.
I listened to it this morning. I did.
So even if it's hold out, you still have to
Yep.
correct it.
Yep. Even if the ball is hold out from playing a wrong ball, you have to correct the mistake. Okay? You get your 2-stroke penalty and you go back to where you last played from. And if you made multiple strokes after playing the wrong ball, all those strokes go away. So if you hit your 2nd stroke is wrong and then your 3rd, 4th, 5th, those don't matter. You're just getting the 2-stroke penalty. Go back and fix it. The ball is going to be placed. Yep. Yeah. All right, so penalty for playing a wrong ball is in match play. Pretty simple. This is why Carol's a big fan of match play. That hasn't changed. We're going to get a general penalty, so loss of hole in match play. And if it's not known which wrong ball was played first, there's no penalty. We're going to play him out. So that's a rare situation when you might switch balls during the play of the hole, but you're not sure who did it. If you can't figure it out, then there's no penalty to anybody. Just play on. Okay? But the first person who makes the mistake is going to be on the hook for the wrong ball and get the penalty. So if Bill and I are playing in a match and I hit his ball and he hits mine, whoever hit it first gets the loss of hole. So I would be the one getting the penalty there if I did it first. And stroke play, this is where you have to correct the mistake by playing the original ball like we talked about, or by substituting it. Basically, so like if you play the wrong ball and it goes into the woods or something like that, the rules will allow you to substitute it in that situation. If somebody plays your ball as a wrong ball, you're not going to be having to replace your ball. You don't have to go digging into the woods, so they'll allow you to substitute it in this situation. But again, 2-stroke penalty in stroke play, must correct the error before teeing off the next hole. This is not a change. This is the same rules as we had before. And here's that situation, what to do if it's played as another player as a wrong ball. If it is known or virtually certain that the player's ball was played by another player as a wrong ball, the player must replace the original ball or another ball on the original spot. So there is the rule that specifically allows substitution. And this applies whether or not the original ball has been found. So if somebody plays your ball as a wrong ball and moves it a foot, you don't have to put the original ball back. You're still allowed substitution. When a player may play more than one ball at a time, and a player may play more than one ball underneath some certain rules as we know about, this hasn't changed. Playing a provisional ball, that provisional may become the ball in play and may not. Or playing 2 balls to correct an error, we got a serious breach from a wrong place, or whether you're requesting a ruling. So there's 2 different situations where you could be playing 2 balls, and then you're going to figure out what's going on from there. All right, order of play, 6.4. Any other questions before we move on about the wrong ball? I think we hit it pretty hard. Jack?
That last one replaced 3-3.
3-3. Yep, I took the old 3-3. Yeah. But this is a reference to the rule. Actually, when we get into Rule 20, that talks about the procedures of playing a second ball. So Rule 20 is going to spell out, but it's neither here nor there. But this isn't the actual 100% replacement of it. All right, so Rule 6.4 covers the order of play. In match play, the order of play is fundamental. As we know, it's very important which side is turned to play. There's no penalty, as we know, but we may request a cancel and replay. In stroke play, there's no penalty for playing out of turn, and players are actually allowed and encouraged to play ready golf. So the rules kind of say, we want you to play out of turn if it's going to speed up play. Okay? Order of play, when first starting the hole. The first hole, the honor is decided by the order of the draw set by the committee. None of this has changed from before, but this is just how we're going to spell it out and whose turn it is to play. In starting all other holes, the player who wins the hole, the honor of the next teeing area. If the hole is tied, we're going to refer back to the other hole, stuff that we should already probably know. If a player makes a timely request for a ruling under Rule 20 that has not been decided by the committee and could affect the honor is decided by agreement. So like if somebody's going to get a penalty and we're not sure about it, it's on the previous hole, we're not going to sit there and wait to figure out whose turn it is to play. Just somebody play is basically what this is saying. And once players have started a hole, the ball that is farther from the hole is to be played first, and the balls are the same distance. We can just agree to play or just some sort of random way to do it by lot. Okay, opponent may cancel a player's stroke made out of turn. If it's the player's play when it was the opponent's turn to play, there is no penalty, but the opponent may cancel the stroke, and this must be done properly. This is the same exact procedure as playing outside of the teeing area. This must be done promptly before either player makes another stroke, and when the opponent cancels the stroke, he or she cannot withdraw that cancellation. So if I tell Ron, hey, you made a 4, okay, that's good. And like, Ron starts counting, no, I made a 6. It's too late. Okay, unless he tells me the wrong number, that's a different rule. But if I just think he makes a 4 when he makes a 6 and I say that's good, it's my fault. It cannot be withdrawn. So, if you,
Even if you didn't see the two-stroke penalty given?
that's a different situation. If I didn't see a 2-stroke penalty in match play, which doesn't exist, by the way, but if it'll be a loss of holes type of thing. But anyway, if I don't see a penalty, it's my opponent's responsibility to tell me, and I concede the stroke. That concession cannot be rescinded, but I would have a request for a ruling that I could make later and say, oh, no, wait a minute, back on hole 7, so on and so forth. So, but again, the concession, once given, is done. Okay, if the opponent does cancel the stroke, the player must, when it is his turn to play a ball from where that stroke was made. Again, substitution could be allowed there as well. You don't have to go get your ball and come back. If the opponent does not cancel the stroke counts and the ball is in play and must be played as it lies or proceed under the rules, obviously. And that exception for match plays is agreeing to play out of turn to save time. Okay, and this can happen at any point. This is a little bit of a change. You can agree to play out of turn just to save time, not a problem. Okay. And here's what we talked about earlier, that bottom sentence. If the opponent then makes the stroke play out of turn, the player has given up his right to cancel the stroke. So once you allow somebody to play out of turn, you can't recall it. Okay, in stroke play, starting the first hole, again, the committee is going to decide who does that. Starting all other holes, same procedure, lowest score in the previous hole. Okay, and if 2 players have the same score, we're going to go back to the hole before that, and so on and so forth. And honor is based on gross scores in a handicap competition. So not the net score, the gross score is going to count whose turn it is. And once players have started the hole, same thing, furthest from the hole plays. If they're the same distance, agree or just do some sort of lot if you want. Okay, and there's no penalty for playing out of turn, except if the players agree and it gives them some sort of advantage. And this is going to be the general penalty. So if we agree to play out of turn so that you can see what club I hit all the time, and you keep on doing that, now we've got a different situation. That's not to save time, that's to get an advantage. And that's where this penalty would come into play.
Ready golf and all this?
Ready golf is encouraged, and they want you to do it. No penalty for playing ready golf. Playing out of turn in a safe and responsible way, that's what they're talking about here. 2 or more players agree to play to do so to save time. Okay? For example, if a player's ball comes to rest a very short distance from the hole, so going up and tapping in is not a penalty. They want you to do that. Okay? It wouldn't be a penalty in any situation anyway because you can play out of turn. Yeah?
I would hope that you'll make that clear to the players on the tee box in the initial instructions.
The ready golf, yeah.
Play ready golf.
Absolutely.
You don't have to wait for it.
Yeah, ready golf is going to be emphasized more on the first tee this year than ever. Most of them won't, no. But yeah, we will definitely be encouraging that. Okay, but they really want to make sure that nobody's in danger, make sure that everybody's out of the way. They specifically talk about player safety. Okay, but if the player's turn is to play, is ready and able to play, and indicates that he or she wants to play first, all other players should wait at that point. Okay, so we're not like, if we're going to play ready golf, we don't want everybody playing at the same time. Let's just figure it out, make sure everybody's safe, and play right. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to have audio on this or not, but we'll see. It's rolling the dice today with the sound.
The order of play when starting a hole depends on who has the honor. After that, it is based on which ball is farthest from the hole. In stroke play, however, there is no penalty for playing out of turn, and the 2019 rules both allow and encourage you to play ready golf. which means to play in a safe and responsible order that is most convenient and that saves time. These players agreed to play out of turn because the player farther from the hole had a difficult shot, and the other player was ready to play.
Okay. So this is currently kind of what we still do in the rules, right? So what's the difference here? The difference is the rules now want this to happen. We want ready golf to be played. We want, again, the pace of play is such a big issue with this game. The rules are really outlining this and saying, let's play when we're ready. All right, order of play with the provisional. So basically what happens if the order of play in this case is that all players in the group will make their first stroke, and then the guy who's going to play the provisionals up. So what happens is you go to the back of the line. So A, B, and C are going to play in that order. A hits one out of bounds. I'm going to hit a provisional. It's going to go B, C, and then A's provisional. He doesn't hit right away. So. Okay, when a player takes relief, or will play a provisional ball from anywhere except the teeing area. So where are we going to determine whose turn it is to play when there's some relief issues going on? Okay, taking relief to play a ball from a different place than where it lies. So when a player becomes aware that he or she is required to take stroke and distance relief, the player's order of play is based on the spot where his previous stroke was made. Okay, so if we're playing a match, Doug and I are in a match, and I tee off, and I hit it down the middle of the fairway. Doug hits it into the fairway about 30 yards behind me. And then Doug hits one up by the green, but out of bounds, and we know it's out of bounds. His ball's closer to the hole, but it's still his turn to play because he has to come back and play, and he's still away. That's what this rule is saying. Once we know that his ball is out of bounds and he has to return, it's his turn to play, even though his original ball is actually closer to the hole. That's all this rule is saying. When a player has a choice to play the ball as it lies or take relief, the player's order of play is based on the spot where the original ball lies. Okay? Same example. Doug once again hits a 30-yard shorter tee shot than me, and he hits the second shot into the red penalty area in front of the green. Okay? And he looks at his options and says, I'm going to come back and play from where I last played from, which is one of his options. Now it's my turn to play because his original ball is in the the red penalty area closer to the hole, but he has a choice. And that's what this rule is saying. Okay? This is not a change. This is the same rule that we've had before, but this is how they're spelling it out now. Any questions on that procedure?
Is there a penalty if there is no penalty? It's just an etiquette issue?
No, remember, order of play is fundamental for match play. It's fundamental for match play. In stroke play, there's no penalty for playing out of turn at any point. It's just it's a etiquette issue and a safety issue, but we still have to define whose turn it is to play. And so, okay? So make sure that you understand the difference. When a player has a choice, it's where the ball actually lies. When he doesn't have a choice, it's where he's supposed to play from. Okay? Playing a provisional ball, the order of play is for the play for the provisional ball right after making the previous stroke and before anyone else plays a ball. That's anywhere except the teeing area. So remember the teeing area, you go back to the end of the line. Everywhere else, you play right away. If it was your turn to play and you hit one and you're going to play a provisional, it's still your turn to play the provisional. Okay? When the player waits to decide before playing a provisional ball, we're going to figure out where that original stroke came to last. If a player wants to wait, and then that exception will kick in. So somebody else can play at that point. So if a person's trying to figure out what they're doing, we don't want to have to wait and say, okay, well, you figure it out because it's your turn. You know, if somebody's trying to figure it out, somebody can step in. All right, we're almost done with this hole. We're getting toward the end of it. Long hole. All right, so players completed a hole in match play when the player holes out or the player's next stroke is conceded and the result of the hole has been decided, such as when a player has conceded the hole or the score for the opponent is way up there. We know that it's going to be done and the hole has been given to the player, or a loss of hole penalty has been applied. That's when this hole ends in match play. Pretty straightforward stuff, but we do have to have it defined. In stroke play, when the player holes out under Rule 3.3c, but there are examples of when you don't hole out in stroke play. Underneath these rules, Stableford maximum score, so on and so forth. But that rule covers it as well. All right, any other questions? Order of play, playing of a hole? All right, in stroke play event, Jackie hits a tee shot from 2 inches outside the teeing ground by accident. What is the ruling? Is there a penalty? It was an accident. Yeah, it's a 2-stroke penalty. The stroke does not count, and Jackie must replay from the teeing area. Okay, you must start the play of the hole from within the tee area. If he or she didn't, that stroke does not count, and the player gets the general penalty, and the error must be corrected. Please note that playing outside of the teeing area is not playing from a wrong place. That is not this rule. Playing from a wrong place is a different rule. This is covered for the teeing area. So, all right, in stroke play event, Bailey's ball comes to rest on the cart path. She elects to take free relief and correctly determines the relief area and gets a brand new ball and drops it in the right way, but it rolls back onto the cart path. She gets a third ball and drops it in the right way, and it rolls onto the cart path again. She gets a fourth ball and places it where the third ball struck the golf course. Which of the following is correct? Does that sound like she got through it right? Yep. Fourth ball's in play with no penalties. Okay. Again, you can replace your ball when dropping it, or if you've dropped it twice and it doesn't stay in place or stay put and you have to place a ball, then you can still substitute it in that situation. And Jackie, I promise this is the last example of you getting a penalty and Bailey not getting a penalty. All right, ready for the quiz review. Question number 1, all my true-false questions to start off with. In match play, if a tied match is to be decided by extra holes, those are a new round. True or false? False. It is a continuation of the first round, of that one round as we talked about. If a player tees off 2 minutes before their starting time, no penalty. False. Yeah, you got to tee off at your starting time, not before, not after. Question 3, in match, if a player decides to stop play due to rain, the opponent must also stop play. False. If there's no agreement, play must continue unless the committee stops play. We have to have an agreement to stop play in that situation. A practice stroke is made during a stopped round that is off the course is not a penalty. True? That is true. It says specifically in the rules an example of when you can make a practice stroke during stop in play. Chipping or putting between holes on the driving range tee during the round is not a penalty. True or false? Why is that false? Driving range is not included in those areas that we can do it. It's got to be the green that you just last played, the teeing area of the hole you're going to play, or any practice green. Okay? Kind of a little tricky question there, but it's important to know that you can't just chip and putt around on the driving range. All right, in stroke play, the committee stops play, and during the suspension, Doug, who finished the 4th hole before the suspension, goes out and hits putts on the 4th green. A player sees this and notifies the committee. What's the ruling? No penalty. This is allowed. Doug is allowed to practice after the hole he just played. A little bit of a guilt trip, maybe. I don't know.
I said there has to be a penalty because it's
I just said, no, you got to remember, I said a Todd question is generally not a penalty. So, but also, you know, we've got year-end reviews coming up, and so, not that that matters, but. All right, so he just finished that hole, so he's allowed to do that. And that specifically says in the rule, even underneath the stoppage, that he may practice at that hole. Play is stopped in stroke play, and Jackie marks and lifts her ball. During the stoppage, about 3 inches of temporary water accumulates where her marker is, and play is resumed. What can she do? Which one is completely accurate? She may. The other 3 must options are not required, but could be viable. Okay, so make sure that you understand this. And I wrote this question specifically for this reason, so that you look at the rules and see what she can and cannot do. Okay? Uh-huh.
Because she's going to take relief from temporary water anyway, why would she not replace the ball, get her relief, here's point relief, and then get her ball?
She could do that as well. She can do that. Let me talk to you about this one afterwards, because there's a lot of different things going on. This specific type of question I like to put in there because it gives correct options, but just make sure that she's not forced to do certain things. There's no must that makes that thing happen. So it's really kind of a little play on the word must in the rules of golf. Although they could be viable, she's not required. Okay. In stroke play, Taylor tops her tee shot and her ball comes to rest in the teeing area up against a tee marker. She lifts the tee marker, plays her second stroke, and replaces the tee marker. What's the ruling? Well, if she does this in 2019, it's a 2-stroke penalty. Rule 6.2b states that when the ball is in the teeing area, the markers are fixed and may not be moved to improve the conditions affecting the stroke. What can she do without penalty? Move her ball. Yeah. It's again, this rule isn't trying to get her a penalty. It's just the rule of the tee markers have to be set when the ball's in there, but she does have options. She can substitute her ball, she can tee it up, she can move it within everywhere she wants. So just make sure you understand that rule, because it's not going to happen that often. So, but make sure we understand it. So, and which one is the following is completely true with respect to stroke play? Remember what's going on here. Okay. Before round, Todd and Bailey may agree to play out a turn to save time. The rule specifically says we can do that. So making an agreement there isn't waiving a rule. Okay. So we can do this. There's no problem. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Going back to the other question, if the ball lands on the teeing area, if it lands just outside the marker, but your new swing is going to hit the marker,
what do we do? Okay, good question. What if the ball is just outside the teeing area and we're going to hit that tee marker? We can move the tee marker in that situation because the ball is outside of the teeing area. The ball is in the general area. It becomes an immovable obstruction. The question is of a fact. Is the ball in the teeing area or it's not? That's what we're looking for. Good question. All right, B is a violation under Rule 13-1B. I got to make sure I have these right here because Bailey's getting an advantage there. I'm teeing off first so she can see if the wind is affecting my ball. We can't agree to do that. Okay? The committee may choose not to DQ the players in C. Okay? It's not an automatic disqualification, but the committee may choose to do it. Okay? Again, completely true. And a stroke may not be called in stroke play. Hopefully nobody answered D. But hey, if you're not reading, this will teach you to read. All right, which of the following results in a penalty? An opponent plays from outside the teeing area in a singles match. Penalty? No penalty, but the opponent's stroke may be recalled. Okay? Making a practice stroke from a bunker near the green of the hole just played. That's a penalty. 5.5b allows practice between holes, but not from a bunker. And Ray brought up a pretty good point there. Difference between a practice stroke and a practice swing. There is a big difference. A practice stroke involves the intent of hitting a golf ball. That's what a definition of stroke is. Making a practice swing isn't necessarily going to be a violation of practice. Okay, so if you put a ball in the bunker after the play of the hole and you take a practice swing, even splashing the sand, if there was no intent to hit the ball, you're going to be okay. But please rake that bunker. Okay, a player substitutes a ball in the putting green. It's a penalty if we make the stroke, but it's not a penalty if we can fix it like Bruce was talking about. So if you do make a stroke, there's a penalty in that situation. We do not allow substitution of the ball during the play of the hole unless we have some other rule in effect. Okay? And this is a good example of authority overriding prohibition. Okay? We're not allowed to substitute a ball. That's a rule. But there are other rules that allow it, and that's what we'll oversee. Okay. The player unreasonably delays play for the first time by taking a cell phone and call it the turn. Is that a penalty? Yeah. It says right there, unreasonably delaying play. You got one stroke penalty in that situation, match play or stroke play. When it is turned into play, a player takes 60 seconds to make a stroke. Is that a penalty? No, not a penalty. Although the rule does say 40 seconds, it's not an immediate violation for the player to miss the time. Now, if that player's on the clock, we might have a penalty in that situation. So, I mean, if you're looking to poke a little hole in the question type of thing, but that's, again, just because you go past 40 seconds, we don't have a violation automatically. If you repeat it, we have an unreasonable delay situation we can deal with. Yeah. And when resuming play after a storm, a player does not mark her ball, lifts and replaces the ball that was left in the general area. Is that a penalty? Yeah, it's a penalty. We were still required to mark that ball in that situation.